Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Daredevil Born Again Season 2. Whatever happens tonight, I will stand and fight. Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast. My name is Nate, and this is our spoiler-free review for Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again Season 2. A kingpin-sized thanks to our lovely friends at Marvel Studios Canada and Disney Plus Canada for providing us this season early for review. If you're joining us for the first time, we are Geekcentric, a podcast celebrating the world of movies, TV shows, video games, and all things geek-centric. Now, just like Daredevil himself, there is no way I could take on Fisk all by myself. No, I'll need the help of my fellow vigilantes. So joining me for this review, all rise, because he puts the law in J-Law. He's the jurisprudential judge of justice, Justin, the loyal, law-abiding, litigating Lawrence.
You recycled that from last year, didn't you?
The jurisprudential, yeah, it's such a good word. It's such a good word, and look it up. It's lawyers know what I'm talking about. Shout out to all the lawyers out there. But listen, he's not alone. Approaching the bench for his opening statement, he's the devil of your kitchen. He's Darcy, the high-stakes, hard-hitting, justice-hungry hero, Hudson. How you doing?
A devil for their kitchen or in their kitchen? Like, what does that mean?
You're a devil in the kitchen, bro. You're whipping up all sorts of stuff.
I eat food. I don't know what to take that as.
I think in our generation, a devil in the kitchen would be a compliment. Honestly.
Okay.
Yeah. Right?
Okay.
Like, in our generation, how like sick, like back in the day when, old people would say like, oh, that's sick. You know what I mean?
I still say that. Are you saying I'm old? You're older than me.
I know. I'm just joking.
He's such a devil in the kitchen that
can't call him devil. Can't say he's old.
I'm just confused. The devil in the kitchen. I'm not sure if that was a compliment. I'm sorry because I'm not good at cooking. I was just going to put it out there. So, like, that's a bit of a slander.
You don't cook
on
in the
me.
kitchen? You don't cook?
No, I suck.
Really?
Oh.
I'm great at eating
well-
food, but making it not so much.
Oh, okay.
Strike it from the record, then, please. We have got somebody who's taking notes,
please.
like in any good courtroom. Guys, we are here, talking about Daredevil, Born Again, and this time even better. Before we dive right in, just for both of you, obviously we have our season 1 review out there, and if you're tuning into this, you've hopefully heard that by now. But if not, for both of you, some high level thoughts on sort of this rebirth of Daredevil coming into season 2 now.
I mean, I love the first season, and I'm loving the second season. Just the way that it picks up everything that the Netflix show started, and then just takes it to the next level. It's almost more extreme and brutal at times, and it's fantastic when it goes that far. And then the storytelling is just top Marvel storytelling. So yeah, I've been really enjoying the return to Daredevil.
Yeah. I think compared to last season, I had a lot of like comments or remarks about just like how obvious at times it felt like they were trying to MCUify the Daredevil character and really kind of fit him in. And, we had that 18-minute opening where, rubber Daredevil is swinging around and
Yes.
it kind of took you out right off the bat. I don't know if that was the greatest introduction, but what then followed for the rest of the season was a return to this as you were mentioning, Darcy, like that Netflix storytelling, that grittier, more crime oriented storytelling. But I would say that there were moments, right? There were a lot of just like little moments, and they would still want to remind you of the sort of MCU quality of it, given the finale and the sort of scope that it had at the end with, Punisher and everything along those lines. But I feel like this season, more than last season, really, stuck to form of keeping it in that gritty crime space of what we know and love from the Netflix series. So I'm actually really happy with what this season gave us. as a whole, because it does feel like we are getting back to that Netflix story. And I think I've even heard Dario in interviews talk about how the first season was to kind of like, again, reintroduce and bring Daredevil into the MCU fold. And now that that story's done, now they can go into doing more of the story that they want. And I think this is where we would want where we would want this Daredevil story to be living in the street level, the crime, the law side of it all. I really did love it. So I think this season definitely was a great follow up to season one.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of those things where we kind of heard about some of the production woes of season one and some of the things that had to be picked up and changed and altered, and it was noticeable. And we talked about it in our season one review. But I think, coming back to Matt Murdock this season, and we will talk about it, it definitely does feel like they have found that level of consistency that we knew from the Netflix era of this character. But let's get to the synopsis for season two. In season two, Mayor Wilson Fisk crushes New York City underfoot as he hunts down public enemy number one, the Hell's Kitchen vigilante known as Daredevil. But beneath the horned mask, Matt Murdock will try to fight back from the shadows to tear down the Kingpin's corrupt empire and redeem his home. Resist, rebel, rebuild. Created by Dario Scartapane, Chris Ord, and Matt Corman, alongside executive producer Sana Amanat, the series stars Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, Deborah Ann Wool, Ayelet Zurer, Wilson Bethel, Margarita Levieva, Janaea Walton, and Michael Gandolfini. This season also marks the long-awaited return of Kristen Ritter as fan favorite Jessica Jones and introduces Matthew Lillard as the mysterious Mr. Charles. Daredevil Born Again Season 2 premieres on Disney Plus on March 24th, 2026, which is tonight if you're listening to this review on the night it's released. So let's kick things off with the look and feel this season. I wanted to kind of ask both of you, has much really changed in terms of how you saw this and felt this season of Daredevil Born Again? And also, we got to talk about it. What did you think of Daredevil's new suit?
I mean, I think, like Justin mentioned, the beginning of the first season being that MCU-ified version of Daredevil, and I like the fact that this season feels like it stayed away from that entirely. Almost, it's very grounded. The action is incredible, and if we're talking about the suit, I love it and the way that it weathers over the course of this series. It tells a story as much as the characters do. So, I'm loving the look and feel and the return to this gritty, again, street level story, and again, the fight scenes and choreography are just incredible across the board. So yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, I agree with you, Darcy. I think that was one of the refreshing parts about this season, is the idea that they kind of didn't really try to MCUify anything too hard, right? They did that already. They've established, I think, a little bit of that look, so now they can kind of sprinkle it in as they need it throughout the rest. But I think right off the jump, this season, it feels sharper, grittier, and way more grounded than aspects of some of the previous season to a certain degree. And again, it comes back to that whole MCU-fying of it. There's a real confidence that was already in existence for this show and its style and its look. And I think that here it's on full display. The lighting is amazing. The framing of moments, and they brought over that aspect ratio change for when Matt's powers sort of click in, or if things kind of go a little bit crazy and chaotic. And there's this one moment where there's just like a loud sound and everything kind of squeezes and the frame squeezes, and it's really, really cool to see. But I love that they've found this sort of visual language in the first season, and they've been able to carry that forward. And again, like you were saying, Darcy, it's leaning into the raw, the street level style. The action is incredible. Like it is some of the best action. We got some great action moments in season one, but this season, man, oh my God, it's like bone crunching. It's visceral. It's just, it never feels overdone. It just feels so raw. And like you feel the weight of all of these punches, especially the way they just kind of like either slow things down or they just frame where those punches are going. Right. And we talked about this last season, and it's very much the same for this season, but just New York itself is such a character in this story, and it feels so alive and in a different way. it's tense. There's a sense of uneasiness, and everyone's constantly on edge, even though that there's this propagandic machine at work to kind of make everyone feel like everything's okay. The atmosphere is kind of murky, and it's all elevated and even further by just elements like the cinematography and the score from the Newton brothers. I absolutely love the score this season. It's fantastic. It's obviously leaning into a lot of what we've already heard, but man, like, I don't know, just I've been humming the theme song. Maybe it's just because I've been watching the show like crazy, but it's stuck in my head. And you mentioned the black suit. Yeah, the black suit is incredible. It's finally great to see the double D's show up, but I love the
You're
fact
always a
that,
fan of big double D's, right?
oh bro, it's like the double D's, where have they been, bro? Like, come on. But like you mentioned how it weathers over time. I just love that it says so much about where Matt Murdock is, or where Daredevil is at this point, to turn his suit more into a symbol. It's very Batman, I guess, to a certain degree in that, when we're talking about it, but making it black, making it something that is more of a symbol to him, and to kind of highlight this rebirth, this new sense of awakening, if you will, for Matt and Daredevil. And that's captured in this darker suit with these D's. I like that it's something that he made. It's not something that he went and got made. It's something that he did himself, and I love that. So I think that adds a whole other layer to it, because it says something about him as a character and why he chose to do that. And as we talk about characters, we'll unravel that. But yeah, I thought it was such a smart choice to make the suit more of something that he made rather than something that was made for him.
Absolutely. And I think that it to your point, like you said, Darcy, like it tells a story. And I think the costuming has always told a story alongside what we're hearing these characters say, and the actions they're taking. I think some of my favorite elements from season one in terms of the look and feel, the stuff that wasn't like they were trying to MCU-fy, right? Those were some of the things that I think we all sort of loved. And I don't want to repeat too much of what you said, Justin, but I think they've consistently brought over the best parts of season one. I think the lighting within the first 10 minutes of the season, we're treated to an action sequence that takes some of those highs of last season and completely quells any fear you might have about how this show is going to look in its action. You brought up earlier the rubber Daredevil flying in the first episode of season one, and we get none of that in this sequence in this season. We get moments with lighting and shadows that feel and look like they're ripped right out of the pages of the comic books, and it's so exciting, and it just sort of gets your geeky heart all giddy. But I think the other thing to mention as well is the details in the background, the way the city evolves and changes over time. Again, another thing that we love to sort of, as geeks pick and look at in the background of things. And we had that a lot in a good portion of stuff in season one. And here we're seeing it even more as New York is starting to reach like this sort of boiling point. We get to see how the graffiti changes, the posters change, and even with this new element of these viral sort of almost guerrilla, political videos are popping up of Mayor Kingpin, this person in a mask. I think it's just so striking and so cool, because much like how the BB report in season one really worked to sort of bring you in almost as if you're a citizen of this version of New York, I think these videos are doing the same thing. And yeah, I love how we're brought into this universe and how well this season maintains that even more than last season. Let's talk about some of these performances. You mentioned the costumes influencing these characters, and of course we got to start off with Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox, Daredevil himself. I think he's perfect. Like we said this last season, but he's Daredevil. He's so good as this character, and how well he's able to sink into this character. But where in the last season I felt he was very much sort of horribly wounded with the loss of Foggy, here we're getting to see how he's using that to sharpen himself, to focus on what's needed most, and almost use it as sort of a North Star for his morality. And I really, really love that. I love that, again, they're taking the best elements of season one's story and bringing them over. And I think Charlie Cox does just such a phenomenal job, as always. What did you two think of Matt Murdock as Daredevil this time around?
You said it best. He is Daredevil. He's so good in the role, and again, returning to this character where he's battling these inner demons that is core to Daredevil in the comics, and he just, it translates so well to the screen when you have someone who understands how to bring that, again, struggle with morality, and where is the line, and how does he not stop himself from crossing it when it gets too personal. It's incredible. And like you said, how he's dealing with the loss of Foggy through this season, using it to force himself to be better and look at things through different eyes is really cool. So yeah, Charlie Cox does a fantastic job as always.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like you said, Nate, last season there was a real sense of like emotional struggle for Matt, and I think that that's still here, but just it's manifested in a different way.
Mhm.
There's a deep level of vulnerability, while there's still being this high intensity and this high focus on wanting to achieve a goal. And you really feel like his internal conflict at times, and you see it manifest itself on like what is the right thing to do. I think he himself has sort of lost the way of understanding what it is, how he can fix this situation, this Fisk situation, which is how someone like Karen Page comes into play, and his relationship with her. We'll talk about her, but to see their relationship in this kind of be at its all-time high, like them sort of finding happiness in this sort of weird, chaotic point of when the city is falling apart under Fisk's fists, like literally, like he's crushing things and breaking people, and just everything is just it's nuts, right? So I just
Yeah.
think that the reality of how he's able to find a sense of peace with Karen while also trying to figure this out with her, because her role in this is also very integral in terms of like him having that internal struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you bring up Karen. Let's talk about Deborah Ann Wool. I think to a certain degree, it almost feels as though we're getting to see a Karen this season that is going through a lot of the things that we didn't get from last season, and knew that she was probably struggling with, but here we're getting to see it in full display. And you brought up the concept of battling inner demons. We're certainly seeing that from Karen this season, and seeing, to your point, how Matt is sort of trying to ensure that the poison doesn't get deeper. You know what I mean? It doesn't, there's no need for more violence, but of course that emotion comes in. And I think one of my favorite things about Deborah Ann Wool this season that I noticed more than any, even in my favorite of hers was season 3 of the Netflix stuff, is just the way that she is able to visually portray in her face Karen anticipating things. You'll see it if you watch these sequences. Like, I watched some of these episodes over again just to watch her in some of these scenes, and the way that she's able to interpret like some really complex emotional things going on, and you look at her face and you go, oh, I can literally see her anticipating. It's just such a great performance element from Deborah Ann Wool, and she's always been spectacular. And I think her best season of the Netflix series was season 3, and I think this season definitely has some of those highs for sure with Karen.
Yeah, I'm just glad we got more of her this season, because again,
Yeah.
last season we only really got her at the beginning and the end. She's a very consistent character throughout this season, like you said, Justin. Looking at her relationship with Daredevil and Matt, and how that's almost mirrored through Fisk and Vanessa's relationship as well throughout this season. It's just the mirroring they do. I mean, you mentioned inner demons. I think every character in this story this season is dealing with some form of inner demon, and the way that it's like affecting their decisions. So it's incredible across the board, I think. Yeah.
Well, I think what's interesting about the relationship between Matt and Karen, as I was mentioning, is that both seem to be dealing with the loss of Foggy differently, right? I think justice is obviously at the top of mind for Matt, whereas maybe that's not the case for Karen, right? And I think that in itself creates a riff between them amidst this sort of happy relationship that they have, where they're leaning on each other. They're, it's really bizarre because like in the first few episodes, you see how happy they are. They're like, you know what I mean? But like they're also working to like tear this shit down. You know what I mean? Like to get underneath it all. So it's really interesting that they were able to find their happiness through this chaos. But at the same time, the thing that they're not talking about is how do they go about achieving what it is they're trying to achieve, right? Does it mean something like killing Fisk, or is it about bringing him to justice? And I think that in itself really does kind of come to full head in one of these episodes, and you really do kind of start to see how that's something they've never talked about. Do you know what I mean? Like, as much as they were so happy with working together and doing this and being back to normal, they never talked about what is that outcome. It's like having a relationship with someone and never mentioning if you want to have kids or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And then it comes up in conversation. It's like, and she's like, yeah, let's kill them all. Wait, whoa, what? What we're doing? What? So I think it's an interesting dynamic. And like you both said, it's so great to have more of Deborah Ann Woll in this show. She is a powerhouse of an actress, and she delivers in every scene that she's in, and she carries so much post trauma from everything, not just Foggy's death, but everything that's happened to her in all of the subsequent seasons, and she's bringing it here. And yeah, the show's made stronger from a performance like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, the way that they're able to incorporate those elements from, even from the Netflix side of things through these characters, carrying them forward. You brought up the word powerhouse. Let's talk about them. Vincent D'Onofrio, Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. Darcy, I love that you mentioned the concept of the trajectory, the arc that it feels like Matt and Wilson are both on. But they're the way that they're approaching these situations obviously is diametrically opposed. For both of you, take it away. What were some of your highlights with Vincent's performance this season as Wilson Fisk?
I mean, he's just like Cox is Daredevil. D'Onofrio is Fisk. He embodies the role, and just the way he says things. Again, he's so menacing by saying the least amount of words, because it's the way that he just grumbles it or grunts it through those closed teeth. Like, it's so menacing and imposing. You can fear him. Like, again, the fear is palpable when Kingpin enters the room, and when he slips in, and when the Fisk mayor facade slips and he becomes the Kingpin, kind of starts poking through. It's some of the best moments, because you see that unbridled rage and that true monster lurking beneath the skin. So yeah, it's fantastic performance as always. Again, these two characters actors are tied to these characters forever now, and I think it's for the better.
It's like he's so quiet, and then he gets so loud, right?
Yeah,
like
for sure. Yeah, he has an unhinged range of emotion, right? It's the one thing I never really got to say to them in the interview. It's that, their performances and their portrayal of these characters is synonymous to who they are, right? Like it's like the equivalent to Robert Downey Jr. and Tony Stark, right? Or Chris Evans and Captain America, or Hugh Jackman and I'm gonna
Wolverine.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep
it in the Marvel universe.
Yeah. Or Ryan and Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool, right? So
I thought you were gonna say Green Lantern. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. But you know what I mean? Like, so like there is a honest marriage between the actors and these characters that feels authentic. They understand them, and it is so clear in this season that Vincent D'Onofrio understands who Wilson Fisk is, and he understands when to bring out Mayor Fisk, when to bring out Kingpin Fisk, and when it shows, and when those lines bleed. There's just what I've always loved about his performance is how he balances quiet control with explosive rage in a way that just makes Fisk feel dangerous, like at all possible times. You just don't know when he's going to snap. And there are moments where you're like, is he gonna do it? Is he gonna do it? Oh, okay, he calmed down, right? You know what I mean? So like,
and there's other moments, Justin, in this season where I'm like, stay away from him right now. Like, you don't know, it's like approaching like a a dog with its face away
Yes.
from you or something, right? You don't know if it's going to bite. And like, I can tell you, character, it's going to bite. So stay away.
For sure.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that's really amazing about Vincent's performance and how nuanced it is. The hand twitches, the eye twitches, the things where he, kind of, relaxes his shoulders or does things with his neck. Like he has found nuances to making this character his own that feels so authentic and real and just unpredictable, right? Like I don't think you can really predict any of his moves in any time. So yeah, I think he's like you guys are saying, it's just Vincent D'Onofrio is Wilson Fisk, and it's perfect. It's perfect casting.
And it's hard to believe with what you've seen in previous seasons, but this is his most unhinged. We are getting to see this season some of the most like wild, like jaw-dropping, both in like severity, like violent severity, and just the way that he carries his character, like you were saying, Justin. It's he's so heavy in so many different ways. Kristen Ritter is back as Jessica Jones. Can either of you share your thoughts on seeing Jessica Jones for the first time in what feels like forever?
I love Kristen Ritter. I think she's fantastic. Again, another great casting for Jessica Jones. I just want to temper expectations here and say, like, she comes in pretty late. So, if you're expecting her to be there after like 2 or 3 episodes, keep waiting. And I think what I like though is how they've found a way to bring her in, but I think there's more opportunity for her in future stuff than just this show. So that excites me.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the way they include her. It is more understated and later in the season, I think the way that she's included makes it feel like this is a very fleshed out universe. Like stuff like this going on the street level, heroes wouldn't like not tell each other. So it makes sense for her to be looped into this storyline at this point because she is another street level hero. So again, I love the return of Kristen Ritter, and like you said, Justin, she's another one of those perfect castings. She's fantastic in the Jessica Jones series, and it's like she didn't miss any of that when she returns on screen here. So
yeah,
I really enjoyed her return.
It was a necessary character to bring over, in my opinion, because it helps to flesh out this street level world. Because there's so many characters from that we loved, right? And to have that means that there could be others down the road, and that's what's really exciting as well. So that to me, again, it's just to hear of her inclusion, to see her involved in this, and to be back. It's that I'm thrilled. I'm looking forward to where else and how else she will show up, and I feel like this is really just a stepping stone for her to kind of maybe do some more.
And I think that's a good expectation, though, to set for anyone listening, that you're absolutely right, Justin. I think when we see early set photos of, oh, Jessica Jones is going to be back, and then, obviously as geeks, we like to get in our heads sometimes about what that could mean, what that's going to look like. And sometimes people set expectations for themselves that are a little unrealistic in a show called Daredevil, that maybe we are going to get like sort of an entire huge arc of Jessica Jones involved. And so I completely understand it from both sides. I agree, Darcy. I think the way that they've brought her in definitely sets you up to sort of, in a very believable way, like understand, like, hey, there's stuff happening outside of just these characters that are in this show. But I think it does such a better job of bringing her in, in comparative to like other sort of crossovers we've seen from Disney live action with like Star Wars and what have you. I think sometimes those get a little bit messy, Book of Boba Fett. But I wanted to bring up another new addition this season, Matthew Lillard, Mr. Charles. Really didn't know what to expect. I actually didn't know about Matthew Lillard's involvement until like right before we started watching these episodes.
Oh, really?
And so I was so like taken aback. I was delighted, and no offense to Matthew when I say this, because I think I'm just so used to him being Shaggy that I wasn't expecting this very understated character that in this Mr. Charles. And I don't want to say too much about the character, and I'll let you guys talk about him in a second here, but to have a character that comes in that even someone like Wilson Fisk is kind of wary of, immediately draws you into this character, even though he's super weird. He's super kind of quirky. I thought he was such a wonderful addition, didn't overstay his welcome. And again, similar to someone like bringing in Jessica Jones, I'm so excited to see what this character means for this universe.
Yeah, this is definitely like an introduction for the character, and I don't see them being done with it with the way they handled it over the course. And I think Matthew Lillard does a fantastic job of again being this shadowy figure who, again, puts fear or knows a bit of everybody and knows secrets and has dirt in everyone. Is a very cool place to be. And I, like you said, I'm excited to see what stories they could tell with him going forward.
Mm-hmm. He reminds me of a Julia Louis-Dreyfus type of Val character where it's like there's obviously a power that he has, but he's also funny. You know what I mean? So like there's a bit of that as well at work. So, he wasn't he definitely was a welcomed addition. I want to see more of him. I want to know more about him. And I like that they kept a mystery around his character.
He's very much a knowledge is power type of kind of character, which again, he's not very good in a fight, but he knows dirt on anyone else and can get them to fight for him. So it's really cool to see. Like, again, I'm looking forward to see where that could go.
Right. Absolutely. Can I shout out another performance?
As long as it's Michael Gandolfini, go for it.
It's not, but I'll leave that to you. I do want to shout out Wilson Bethel, who is Bullseye.
Come on.
Honestly, like, I know he killed Foggy, but like this season really redeemed Bullseye's character as a whole. He's still a fucking asshole, but like he's so badass and he's straight up terrifying. And like, I don't know, like he's unpredictable, just like we were talking about with Fisk. But like, I don't know, there's just one scene that like was just so badass. I'll just say it's in episode 4. You look forward to it. It's fantastic. It'll make you love the character even as much as, as much evil as he's done. And I don't know, it was great. So I'm very excited for people to see that one.
Just to hype up that sequence just really quickly without saying anything about it, it lives in my mind right next door to the opening of X-Men 2. Like it literally, it's in that same space for me as far as like how much I'm going to remember it. So yeah, not to hype it up too much because I know there's a lot of fans of that sequence from X-Men 2. But yeah, Darcy, did you have any thoughts on Mr. Bethel's performance?
Again, he was incredible. The fact that we're getting more of him and again getting to understand kind of why he is the way he is fantastic. And to portray someone as unhinged as Bullseye, who literally can make anything a weapon, he manages to do it and make it believable, which is always great with these comic stories because they are ridiculous powers or premises, but to make it believable and pull it off as this badass cool assassin, it works so well. And yeah, that scene in episode 4, so good. Maybe on a milkshake.
Yeah, I know, man. The thing that's interesting, and I think you could kind of say about like from Poindexter to Matt and Daredevil, Bullseye, or even Fisk to Matt, there's this enemy of my enemy mentality where there's like a mutual respect to a degree, but also a obviously like how do you handle this and be tried for your crimes mentality around it as well. And to see that as a layer that kind of weaves its way through between, again, like I was saying, Matt and Poindexter, or Daredevil and Bullseye, and like Fisk and Matt. It's really interesting to see that kind of be sort of an undercurrent theme that kind of plays in this show. I feel like there's something interesting there. I haven't really fully unwrapped it yet. Maybe in a spoiler discussion we can talk a little bit more about how those lines parallel each other, or these relationships parallel each other. But there are shots, if you've seen trailers, where Daredevil's helping Bullseye, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's interesting what the sort of struggle that has for Matt to kind of deal with that. So it's cool.
Yeah, I'm so excited for people to just get to experience that. And I think it's one of those things where it's like, it's having a character that you feel very strongly about a certain way, and that having that evolve over the course of even just one season of a show is so impressive from a writing standpoint. Another character that kind of does that a little bit for me as well this season is Michael Gandolfini in the role of Daniel Blake. I think, it's interesting because we're used to seeing superheroes having to balance their everyday life, their normal life, their human side of things, if you will, with all the extra stuff, all the crime fighting, and so to see Daniel in this season, he's got that. They touched upon a little bit of a relationship with him and Jania Walton's BB in the previous season, and this season we get to see how their friendship is working. And obviously, it's incredibly difficult for Daniel to be maintaining both sides of his life. And I love how they explore that through this character that in season 1, I very much just looked at as kind of like an underling. And you do get a bit of that this season. I do love whenever like he's in a room with Fisk and Fisk laughs, Daniel will just laugh, kind of like how Dwight would laugh when Michael would laugh in The Office. Like it's that similar sort of underling dynamic. But I think the way that Michael Gandolfini, obviously, son of the late actor James Gandolfini, the way he's able to kind of pull in that I don't know, that incredible level of intensity in his performance is so good. Guys, let's talk about the story without talking about the story, as we like to do on these spoiler-free reviews. And I think, again, I'm gonna bring up consistency. I think this season, more than anything, feels like a true vigilante story, even more than season 1. And I know season 1 was like, that was the whole thing. I think season 1 felt like setting up the stakes and preparing for battle, and this season feels like this is the where we were planning on getting to in season 1. This feels like the war, and I think the word desperation comes up a lot when I think about this season, and just getting to see Matt and Fisk up against a wall like we've been talking about this entire time. Guys, what did you think of the story this time around for season 2 of Daredevil Born Again?
Yeah, I mean, I said this when we were talking to some friends at Comic-Con on the weekend, but it felt more like a part 2 than a season 2 in the way that it directly continues the story. There is no time lost in between. Like, you're not missing anything from 1 to 2. You're just thrown right on the street again and continuing the Daredevil's battle against Mayor Fisk, which I thought was incredible. And then the way they handle bouncing between the two sides and showing you, again, the mirrors and parallels between our two characters and Fisk and Matt, it's just incredible. And where it ends, I think, is my favorite part, because over the course story, it's brutal and badass, but the ending just does it justice. I know it's kind of punny, but it works. And I think it's a really nice capping to the story that is about this street level vigilante justice, and the way it ends is just very poetic, I think.
Yeah, I think for me, what really stood out about this story for this season is, yes, it feels like a direct continuation. If it's a part 2, we're getting that war, but it's just how real it feels. Like there are moments and ideas that feel like they are literally been pulled straight out of today's headlines, which just adds this layer of honest discomfort, because it doesn't feel far removed from reality in a lot of ways, right? Like I spoke with Dario about this, and I asked him, was it intentional to kind of incorporate some of those elements, and he mentioned that none of this was meant to mirror current events. It was actually, the intention was to reference history and this idea of setting up an autocrat leader rising to power and weaponizing a militia, and the fact that it feels so relevant now is just by design and of how the world is. So and
unfortunately,
unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
So that there's a scene with the bodega that is going to very much feel like it is ripped from the news, and they talked about how sometimes when they would shoot stuff and they would look at it, it's like, wow, this does feel like that. And it was never done with the intention to make a statement about things politically. This was all done in the sense of like, let's reference history and make this a story. And oddly enough, history is repeating itself right now. So I think that there's this real authenticity that people are going to feel uncomfortably real about at times when they watch it, especially with this idea of like fear around government, fear around the task force, and
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of stuff. And I think that for me, that's what made this season hit so hard, was just talking about that. And obviously the idea of these voices and these characters like Daredevil and the people surrounding him that are out for a difference and a change. It's not just compelling, it's in some ways it can be unsettling to see the things that are happening and how it sticks with you, but the way that they are overcoming it, it almost feels like that's the only way to overcome it. It's a bit
Mm-hmm.
extreme, obviously, but at the same time, it's a season about, it's a show that shows like that there's hope, that to have hope and to have strength to kind of fight through what you don't believe to be right. And I think that that in itself, like, even though there are extremes to it here, we're talking about a Marvel show. I think that's a big takeaway for me from this season, and just a lot of things that kind of resonated with it. And to your point, Darcy, even the ending, the way it all kind of comes to the end there, it does feel very poetic, especially with everything we've been building towards through the season. That finale does feel very earned and very poetic, as you said.
Yeah, and I think you're talking about, how it's mirroring real events or just happens to be because history is repeating itself. That's something that I've always loved about comics,
Yeah.
is that a lot of their biggest storylines are just meant to be ways to look at how we've treated each other in the past as humans, and with mutants being a very clear race allegory type thing. Like that's what comics do well, is to bring these challenging issues to light in a way that you can stomach and start digesting on your own time. So I think, again, this season does a fantastic job of doing that as well, where it's dealing with these difficult matters, stuff like that, but also showing you that there is a light at the end of the tunnel if we can stand together, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I I love that. And I think it does add to the gravity of this season, but it also adds to just the level by which, again, so many of these moments are going to be memorable, for phenomenal production and storytelling reasons and character reasons, and also for some unfortunate reasons as well. I think the biggest thing this season, though, that I loved, for me, we definitely saw this last season. We talked about this last season, but I think it's even more prevalent with how well this season maintains the two sides of the same coin arcs for Matt and Fisk. Right? We talked about that. We brought that up earlier, but the idea that even extending out to, like you said, Darcy, extending to Vanessa, extending to Karen, and the way that their relationships with each other are working. There are sequences in this season where we are bouncing back and forth, like you mentioned, Justin, and getting to actually sort of, they're really not sort of being subtle about it in some of these moments where you're just like, wow, they are really going through the same things. They want some of the same end goals, but they are going to be going about it in just very different ways.
Mhm.
And I think it's just so compelling. Guys, let's get to our closing statements. And
Mhm.
I'd love a score on a scale of 1 to 5 bloody fists. Darcy.
Again, I think this season I love it more than the first season. Like we said, it's more grounded, it's more consistent. The storytelling is a masterful in the way that they are so clearly, and also at times not clearly, showing these parallels between the characters and the journeys they've been on across the board. It was incredible. I love all the little Easter eggs, and when it does go a bit more MCU for us, I really enjoy it. The times it does go funny, the humor is there, it's fun. Again, these characters are witty and charming, but they don't get the time to do that in these a lot of time to do that in these dark times. But when it does happen, it gives you that smile that you need to get through these dark moments. So I think it's really good across the board, performances, setting, all that stuff. Giving this one a strong 5 out of 5 bloody fists from me.
Yeah.
Nice.
Justin.
Yeah, I think Daredevil Born Again season 2 is everything I want from this world, and I think everything fans would want from this world, coming off of something not just of season 1, but just, again, coming off of the Netflix series. It's brutal, it's grounded, it's emotionally charged, and I think the performances from all of the cast just elevates every moment. It gives you real stakes. It makes you understand different perspectives in this situation. It doubles down on what works while telling you a story that will make you feel uncomfortable. at times when things feel very real and timely, proving that, it doesn't just hit hard, it's going to stick with you. So I'm going to be giving this one a 4.5 out of 5 bloody fists.
Yeah, I think this is an outstanding win for Marvel Television and Daredevil fans. And it's wild because it feels like Marvel Television is just sort of, they're nailing it. We just heard that there is going to be a season 2 of Wonder Man, which kicked off the year so high for us as well. And I think, this season, like I said, it feels so much more consistent. It feels more confident in its messaging. I think to what you mentioned, Justin, just now, it is definitely not an easy watch. I think there's going to be some moments. I know it's not intentional, but there will be moments that may prove too real for some folks to watch. I think, though, the way that this story, sort of sticks to the core competencies of the character of Daredevil, which, to me are justice, resilience, and restraint, even in the face of vengeance, I think is so compelling. He's such a compelling character. And when you have him up against an even stronger Fisk this season, you mix in Bullseye, like we talked about, Jessica Jones, the reaction of New York City. We talked about New York City being a character last season, very much feels that way this season as well. You just get a fantastic Daredevil story that Justin, like you said, it will stick with you. So I cannot wait. I am so fascinated to see what's going to happen in season 3. They've already started filming. This season is better than season 1, and I enjoyed season 1 quite a bit. Even the bank heist St. Patrick's Day episode, I really enjoyed that one as well. I think I there were so many moments this season that just had me in pure shock. I'm going to be giving Daredevil Born Again season 2 a solid 5 out of 5 bloody fists. But that is it for our spoiler-free review for Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again Season 2. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to share your thoughts on this series or any of the series or movies we cover, well, let me just have Justin address the court with his suggestions on how you can legally reach out to us to finally bring justice to any thoughts that you might have.
Well, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. They can also reach out to us on Twitter at geekcentricyt, or they can find us on Instagram and TikTok at wearegeekcentric.
Keep in mind, we have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies and TV shows, including our recent spoiler-free reviews for Project Hail Mary, Prime Video's Young Sherlock, Disney and Pixar's Hoppers, Shrinking Season 3, and Marvel Television's Wonder Man. Plus, we've got some great interviews to check out, like one of our most recent interviews with Daredevil and Wilson Fisk themselves. Justin sat down with Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio to discuss how they believe each other's characters view each other this season, and their answers are hilarious and incredibly accurate. Plus, Justin also sat down with showrunner Dario Scartapane and executive producer Sana Amanat to discuss Sana's excellent work balancing the executive and creative work behind the scenes on the show, and they both share how this series holds up an unintentional mirror to our real world. I think their answers are incredibly eloquent and so well said. So definitely go check that out. Be sure to check out that as well as all of our interviews, either here on your podcast service of choice or over on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. Lastly, if you're hungry for more than just justice, you can check out our latest adventures in the exploration of geeky foods by heading over to our other Instagram and TikTok at We Are Eatcentric. We've got some great bite-sized reactions to some delicious things that we ate at Walt Disney World, as well as our reaction to Darcy and I went out on the streets. When we go on the streets, Darcy, we do things a little differently than Daredevil. And we ate a Kith croissant cone that was absolutely delicious. But that is it for now, friends. We've got some great stuff coming soon, like our coverage for Invincible Season 4, The Testaments, Maul Shadow Lord, and the Super Mario Galaxy movie. I am beyond stoked for that one. So stay tuned and subscribe and follow us so you don't miss a thing. Darcy, Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this devilish spoiler-free review. And as we say, love ya.
Laters.
Peace.